Oh no! Okay, good morning. Another scuff part of my stream. So basically I was trying to explain about what I was gonna do, and you can see my hands waving around. Basically that was me excitedly talking to chat, only to realize that I unmuted the wrong stuff. So I unmuted desktop instead of mic. I'm stupid like this. Yeah, it's been a while since I streamed this. Yes, thank you guys. Basically what you see my hands here is me re-enabling the tracking for hands, so I can do a lot of things like that. It's not like the best, okay? And also because my hands are kind of black and the clothing is kind of black, it's not very clear silhouette here, as you can see, but I can do this. I can flip off my haters now, so that's the major perk. But I wanted to say like this link in the Ko-Fi at the bottom here, like I wanted to show it, but then something went wrong. So like I can do this, but when I get to here, like my hands just completely disintegrate. The fingers are just not working. Anyways, I was saying, like I did a few things off screen, like on and off screen actually. You guys know, for like the past few weeks I've been dying. So last week we had 400 collections for Marine Princess. Today I woke up to 450, which means I need to be prepping for like a weekend Marine chapters. But anyway, so the plan going forward from now on, because I have 3 freaking channels to stream on. Okay, I'm gonna go by my 1 stream per day cap policy. Remember last time I used to like stream all 3 channels in like one single day as well sometimes. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm only gonna keep it to like 1 a day, maximum 1 a day. So relax, I'm not gonna overwork myself. I'm gonna try and pace myself actually. So what happens on the writing channel, I'm gonna put it, or rather I will try to put it all on Tuesdays. As for my singing channel, I will try to put it, like the Japanese thing, on Thursdays. It's not guaranteed to be like every week, but I will do my best. The writing channel in itself will have several segments. So you know I do writing for Marine Princess, it's co-working with Pomodoro, and I also do it with Godfather World sometimes. So like, I'm gonna try and keep that to like an alternate week kind of thing. And in between those, assuming that a month has like 4 weeks, one of them is gonna be this reading stream that I will continue and bring back more often. And then the other one is going to be like, you know, my website kind of unalived itself, so I canceled the premium subscription. Yeah, so update on that, a little update on that is that Dame Butterfly, she actually helped me to how do I say this, like replicate the entire website for me offline, so I can actually access all my materials from there offline, but it's only for me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna recreate the entire thing. What I found is, okay, so we're gonna redesign the workflow of how these works out. So I'm gonna have to need time to make the website landing page, which is on Cardco. It's free, but it will take time for me to actually design the entire shit out. It's gonna take a while, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna revisit all the other blogs that I've written for the e-course before this, and I'm gonna revamp it. I'm gonna recreate the stream actually. Basically I'm gonna recreate the stream for all of those while updating the information. So the other week that I'm not doing writing and reading, I'm gonna be pulling all of these. So essentially once a month you'll be seeing me bring back all those topics to live stream before I write the blog on Ko-Fi, and the Ko-Fi link is here at the bottom. Can you see this? Yeah, it's at the bottom here. So you don't have to donate if you don't want to, but it would help a lot because right now I'm not paying for hosting. I had donations, so Mats96 actually helped me with the donations there for the hosting. I don't know how long that will be, but I'm trying to keep costs to a minimum because I'm running this absolutely free for everybody. And I used to pay for 4 years. Yeah, for the last 4 years actually, because there were 2 renewals. This is the second renewal. Yeah, this is the second renewal. So I paid for like 4 years, including hosting, domain names and whatnot. So it was all on my own cost. And just yesterday, so one of my students that I told the parents, I was like, your kid is no longer interested in this. Like from what I see, there is no need for them to move to Singapore. They are from Japan, and the kid is so accustomed to Japanese culture and whatnot, she seems unwilling to move to Singapore, which is why she's also deliberately not learning English in a way that's enthusiastic. So I dislike teaching students that don't display learning enthusiasm. Like, if you don't want to be in my class, just talk to your mom, let me know, I'm okay with you dropping. So they let me know eventually last night that they will be discontinuing me from next month onwards, which I kind of expected, and I'm kind of relieved. But on the other hand, financially I'm not that stable, so I need to go and find like a part-time job over here in like Singapore, kind of near my place actually, but my place is kind of like way off as well. I don't want to spend too much time traveling and working, because it means that I won't be able to do as much content creation like what I'm doing right now with all my plans for you guys. But I still kind of need to pay bills. I am not asking you guys to donate because I know it's not fair. You guys work very hard as well, so I'm keeping it free as much as possible. So if you guys know any other better ways to host my website landing page that is not on Cardco and stuff like that, or you know how to design a landing page on Cardco and you want to help me out, please let me know. I need a lot of help, like as much as I can get. I am no designer and I am no programmer. When I went to Cardco, I was like, what the fuck is everything? So long story short, I spent 2 months designing the Wix website. You know, I had to Google and everything, and then there were like codes that I had to add onto it sometimes. I was like, oh god. But yeah, so if you have the skills, expertise, the time and whatever not, like please, if you can volunteer it, I would appreciate that over the financial stuff. Let me take care of my own financial burdens for now. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. Actually, there are people who are worse than me. Like right now, there is a VTuber friend who you guys know from a while back. His name is Michan. So you haven't seen him for a while now because he's going through a rough patch in life. So he gave me like a tarot reading, right? He said, you're currently in uncharted waters. And he said that I'll be needing some kind of divine intervention for that. But he himself, the very next day, he got evicted from his family's house. Like his very toxic mother. I don't know if this is a trend nowadays, right? But he's not the only person who I know. The family uses him but doesn't love him. So I think it's good that he moved out, even if it's forcibly. But yeah, he's going through a rough patch right now. No house, no computer, he can't stream, he only has a phone, and his job is kind of in a shaky position as well. So yeah, I'm praying for Michan actually. I am not that bad off, like if compared to people like him. So yeah, I'm wishing the best for everybody while I'm doing this. So like I said, Tuesdays will be writing channels, Thursdays would be the singing channel, or slash the Japanese learning channel. Yeah, I'm bringing that back actually. I did schedule one for this week on Thursday, but it's probably not gonna be as regular because Thursdays, yeah, I have things on Wednesdays which would affect things on Thursdays sometimes. Anyway, I also said to myself, I wanted to do like one song cover every month, and I haven't gotten to recording anything yet. That is a thing as well. So yeah, please forgive me. Wait a little longer. I might do a karaoke stream or something. Yeah, that happened. And then Mondays and Fridays will be on the gaming channel. So I have now like trying to pace myself out streaming wise. I'm no longer gonna do all 3 streams for all 3 channels on the same day, because that's crazy. You guys don't have like the time to watch me for an entire fucking day either. I don't want you guys to do that. Go get a life, okay? Get a girlfriend, get a boyfriend. Let me know that you're happy. And then yeah, so I'm keeping it to maximum 1 stream a day. So I'm gonna stagger it out. I have finally finished all the backlogs, all the urgent matters that have been haunting me. Starting off with the Minecraft big edit series thing that's like 1.5 fucking hours, because I'm terrible at editing and I need to teach myself how to edit videos for like the 100 days if I don't want it to be a disaster again, like this one. And then there is also the... where's that coming out? Yeah, okay, I also schedule a lot of like shorts, at least once a week, all the way up to the end of November actually. I did that just last night. Yeah, which is also the same reason why I'm so surprised Marine Princess is kind of taking off. Yeah, and I'm also job hunting while I'm at this, and increasing like my exercise routine and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm actually currently getting the Roomba to clean my house right now while I'm doing this. Anyways, without further ado with my messy life, I hope we can start. This is Inkheart by Cornelia Funke. And we are currently on chapter 4. So if you want to hear like the previous chapter readings, that is not so good. So today we're going to be trying a little tip that Keelan Powell, our man, like last week, the author interview. Yeah. Right, he gave a tip, remember, about audio recording and stuff like that. He's like, use your normal voice but speak with more conviction or confidence. So I'm gonna try that. I don't have the best accent. He has the best accent and the best voice. He's like the Australian version of a Morgan Freeman if he truly wants to. That's not me though. I'm like high and squeaky and my real voice sounds like it's not made for English. Alright, chapter 4. The title is A House Full of Books. I don't have the right lighting, it's okay. So remember Cornelia Funke, the book itself always includes like her favorite quotes for every chapter. This quote here is by J. Doraston, quoted by W. Blades. So this is an excerpt from somewhere. Okay, it's pretty long. Okay, let me just start from here. There is a sort of busy worm that will the fairest book deform. Their tasteless tooth will tear and taint the poet, patriot, sage or saint. Nor sparring wit nor learning. Now if you'd know the reason why, the best of reasons I'll supply. 'Tis bread to the poor vermin. Right, so it's not exactly quote, it's more like a quote poem. It's kind of like a poem. It's like contemporary poem. I think what they're talking about here are bookworms. So if you don't know what bookworms are, they are like the worst offenders of paperbacks. So if you leave it out for too long, okay, book mold is normal, like the yellowing of pages and stuff like that. Yeah, it happens because, you know, humidity over time. I get that, like this book has yellowed pages as well. It's not the best. But bookworms are different. Bookworms, they destroy the book, they eat the book. So it's not like, oh, it's just like a quality issue that changes and stuff. No. It's like the entire page just gets, you know, the words get eaten up and you never see them again. You can never read the book again. So that is bookworm. So I'm thinking this is what it's talking about, because the chapter is called A House Full of Books. Alright, let me see. How long is this chapter? Because chapters are kind of not very stable. I might have to take a break if this is long. This is long. Yeah, I remember this was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's about 15 or 16 pages long. Alright, the book is not that big, but still 15 or 16 pages long. It's probably like 5 or 6 A4 size paper. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, we'll do it slowly, over time. I will react to certain stuff if I see interesting ones. Maggie woke up because it was so quiet. The regular sound of the engine that had lulled her to sleep had stopped. The driver's seat beside her was empty. It took Maggie a little while to remember why she wasn't in bed at home. Tiny dead flies were stuck to the windscreen, and the van was parked outside an iron gate. It looked alarming, with sharp ashen grey spikes. A gate made of spearheads just waiting to impale anyone who tried to clamber over. It reminded Maggie of one of her favorite stories, the tale of the selfish giant who wouldn't let children into his garden. This was exactly how she had imagined his garden gate. Mo was standing in the road with dust finger. Maggie got out and went over to them. On the right side of the road, a densely wooded slope fell steeply to the bank of a wide lake. The hills on the other side rose from the lake like giants emerging from the depths. The water was almost black, and pale twilight, darkly reflected in the waves, was already spreading across the sky. The first lights were coming on in the houses of the bank, looking like glowworms or fallen stars. A lovely place, isn't it? Mo put his arm around Maggie's shoulder. I know you like stories about robbers. See that ruined castle? A notorious robber band once lived there. I must ask Elena about them. She knows everything about this lake. Maggie just nodded and rested her head against his shoulder. She was so tired that she felt quite dizzy. But for the first time since they had set off, Mo's face wasn't looking green with anxiety. Where does she live then? Asked Maggie, stifling a yawn. Not behind that spiky gate? Actually, yes. This is the entrance to a property. Not very inviting, is it? Mo laughed and led Maggie across the road.
Eleanor is proud of this gate. She had it specially made. It's copied from a picture in a book.
A picture of the selfish giant's garden? Murmured Maggie, peering through the intricately twining iron bars.
The selfish giant?
Mo laughed.
No, I think it was another story. Although that one suited Eleanor pretty well.
Tall hedges grew on both sides of the gate, their thorny branches hiding any view of what lay beyond. But even through the iron bars, Maggie could see nothing promising except for tall rhododendron bushes and a broad gravel drive that soon disappeared between them.
Looks like you have rich relations,
Dustfinger whispered in her ear.
Yes, Eleanor is quite rich,
said Mo, drawing Maggie away from the gate.
But she'll probably end up poor as a church mouse because she spends so much money on books. I think she'd sell her soul to the devil without thinking twice if he offered her the right book for it.
He pushed the heavy gate open with a single movement. What are you doing? Asked Maggie in alarm. We can't just drive in. For there was a notice beside the door, still clearly legible even if some of the letters were partly hidden by the leaves of the edge. Private property. No unauthorized entry. Maggie didn't think it sounded very inviting. Mo, however, only laughed.
Don't worry, he said,
opening the gate wider.
The only thing Eleanor guards with the burglar alarm is her library. She couldn't care less who walks through this gate. She's not what you call a nervous woman, and she doesn't have many visitors anyway.
What about dogs? Dustfinger peered anxiously into the strange garden.
That gate suggests at least 3 ferocious dogs to me. Big ones, the size of calves.
But Mo just shook his head.
Eleanor hates dogs,
he said, going back to the van.
Right, get in.
Eleanor's grounds were more like a wood than a garden. Once they were through the gateway, the drive curved, as if taking a deep breath before going up the slope, then lost itself among dark firs and chestnut trees, which grew so close together that their branches made a tunnel. Maggie was just thinking it would never end when the trees suddenly receded, and the drive brought them to an open space covered with gravel and surrounded by carefully tended rose beds. A gray estate car stood on the gravel in front of a house that was bigger than the school Maggie had been attending for the last year. She tried to count the windows, but soon gave up. It was a very beautiful house, but looked just as uninviting as the iron gate. Perhaps it was only the evening twilight that made the ochre yellow of the plaster look so dirty. Ochre. And perhaps the green shutters were closed only because night was already falling around the surrounding mountain. Perhaps, but Maggie would have bet her last book they were so seldom opened even in the daytime. The dark wooden front door looked as forbidding as a tightly closed mouth, and Maggie involuntarily reached for Mo's hands as they approached it. Dustfinger followed warily, with his battered rucksack over his shoulder. Gwyn was probably still asleep inside it. When Mo and Maggie went up to the door, he kept a couple of steps behind them, looking uneasily at the closed shutters as if he suspected that the mistress of this house was watching them from one of the windows. It was a small barred window beside the front door, the only one not hidden behind green shutters. Below it was another note. If you intend to waste my time on trivia, you'd better go away now. Maggie cast Mo an anxious glance, but he only made an encouraging face at her and pressed the bell. Maggie heard it ringing inside the big house, but nothing happened for quite a while. A magpie fluttered out of one of the rhododendron bushes growing near the house, and a couple of fat sparrows pecked busily at invisible insects in the gravel. But that was all. Maggie was just throwing them the breadcrumbs that she found in her jacket pocket, left over from a picnic on some long forgotten day, when the door suddenly opened. The woman who came out was older than Mo, quite a lot older, although Maggie could never be quite sure how old grown-ups were. Her face reminded Maggie of a bulldog, but perhaps that was more her ferocious expression than its features. She wore a mouse gray sweater and an ash gray skirt with a pearl necklace around her short neck and felt slippers on her feet, the kind of slippers Maggie had once had to wear when she and Mo visited an historic castle. Eleanor's hair was gray too. She pinned it up, but strands were hanging down everywhere as if she had done it impatiently and in a hurry. She didn't look as if she'd spent much time in front of a mirror. "Good heavens, Mortimer, what a surprise," she said without wasting time on further greetings. "Where did you spring from?" Her voice sounded brusque, but her face couldn't entirely hide the fact that she was pleased to see Mo.
"Hello, Eleanor,"
said Mo, putting his hand on Maggie's shoulder.
"Do you remember Maggie? As you can see, she's grown up quite a bit now."
Eleanor cast Maggie a brief, irritated glance. "Yes, so I say," she said. "It's only natural for children to grow. Wouldn't you say? As far as I remember, it's been some years since I last set eyes on either you or your daughter. So to what do I owe the unexpected honor of your visit today? Are you finally going to take pity on my poor books?"
"That's right."
Mo nodded.
"One of my library commissions has been postponed. You know how libraries are always short of money."
Maggie looked at him uneasily. She hadn't realized he could lie quite so convincingly. And because it was so sudden, Mo continued, "I couldn't find anywhere for Maggie to go, so I brought her with me. I know you don't like children, but Maggie won't leave jam on your books or tear up pages to wrap up dead frogs." Elena muttered something suspicious and scrutinized Maggie as if she thought her capable of any kind of disgraceful conduct, whatever her father might say. When you last brought her, we could at least put her in a playpen," she remarked coldly. "I don't suppose that would do now." Once again, she looked at Maggie up and down as if she were being asked to admit a dangerous animal to her house. Maggie felt her anger make the blood rise to her face. She wanted to go home, or get back in the camper van and go somewhere else. Anywhere, so long as she didn't have to stay with this horrible woman whose cold pebble eyes were boring holes into her face. Eleanor's gaze moved from Maggie to Dustfinger, who was still standing in the background, looking awkward. "And who's this?" She looked inquiringly at Mo. "Do I know him?"
"This is Dustfinger, a friend of mine." Perhaps only Maggie noticed Mo's hesitation. "He wants to go on south, but maybe you could put him up for a night in one of your many rooms."
Elena folded her arms. On a condition, his name has nothing to do with the way he treats books," she said, "and he'll have to put up with rather Spartan accommodation in the attic, because my library has grown a great deal over the last few years. Nearly all my guest rooms are full of books." "How many books do you have?" asked Maggie. She had grown up among piles of books, and even she couldn't imagine there were books behind all the windows of this huge house. Elena inspected her again, this time with unconcealed contempt. "How many?" she repeated. "Do you think I count them like buttons or peas? A very, very great many. There are probably more books in every single room of this house than you will ever read. And some of them are so valuable that I wouldn't hesitate to shoot you if you dared touch them. But as you are a clever girl,
or so your father assures me. You wouldn't do that anyway, would you?
Maggie didn't reply. Instead, she imagined standing on tiptoe and spitting 3 times into this old witch's face. However, Mo just laughed.
You haven't changed, Eleanor, he remarked, a tongue as sharp as a paper knife. But I warn you, if you harm Maggie, I'll do the same to your beloved books.
Eleanor's lips curled into a tiny smile. Well said, she answered, stepping aside. You obviously haven't changed either. Come in. I'll show you the books that need your help, and a few others as well. Maggie had always thought Mo had a lot of books. She never thought so again. Not after setting foot in Eleanor's house. There were no haphazard piles lying around as they did at home. Every book obviously had its place. But where other people have wallpaper, pictures, or an empty wall, Eleanor had bookshelves. The shelves were white and went right up to the ceiling in the entrance hall through which she had first led them. But in the next room and the corridor beyond it, the shelves were as black as the tiles on the floor. These books, announced Eleanor with a dismissive gesture as they passed the closely ranked spines, have accumulated over the years. They're not particularly expensive. Most of mediocre quality. Nothing of the ordinary. Should certain fingers be unable to control themselves, and take one off the shelf now and then. She added, casting a brief glance at Maggie. I don't suppose the consequence would be so too serious. Just so long as once those fingers have satisfied their curiosity and put every book back in its right place again, and don't leave any unappetizing bookmarks inside. Here, Eleanor turned to Mo. Believe it or not, she said, I actually found a dried up slice of salami used as a bookmark in one of the last books I bought. A wonderful 19th century first edition. Maggie couldn't help giggling, which naturally earned her another stern look. It's nothing to laugh about, young lady, said Eleanor. Some of the most wonderful books ever printed were lost because some fool of a fishmonger tore out their pages to wrap his stinking fish. In the Middle Ages, thousands of books were destroyed when people cut up their bindings to make soles for shoes or to heat steampots with their paper. The thought of such incredible abominations, even if they had occurred centuries ago, made Elena gasp for air. Well, let's forget about that, she said, or I'll get overly excited. My blood pressure's much too high as it is. She had stopped in front of a door, which had an anchor with a dolphin coiled around it, painted on white wood. This is the famous printer's special sign, explained Eleanor, stroking the dolphin's pointed nose with one finger. Just the thing for a library door, eh? I know, said Maggie. Aldous Manutius. He lived in Venice and printed books the right size to fit into his customers' saddlebags. Really? Eleanor wrinkled her brow, intrigued. I didn't know that. In any case, I'm the fortunate owner of books that he printed with his own hands in the year 1503. You mean it's from his workshop? Maggie corrected her. Of course, that's what I mean. Elena cleared her throat and gave Mo a reproachful glance, as if it could only be his fault that his daughter was precocious enough to know such things. Then she put her hand on the door handle. No, child, she said as she pressed the handle down with almost solemn reverence, has ever passed through this door. But as I assume your father has taught you a certain respect for books, I'll make an exception today. However, only on condition you keep at least 3 paces away from the shelves. Is that agreed? For a moment, Maggie felt like saying, no, it wasn't. She would have loved to surprise Elena by showing contempt for her precious books, but she couldn't do it. Her curiosity was too much for her. She felt almost as if she could hear the books whispering on the other side of the half-open door. They were promising her 1,000 unknown stories, 1,000 doors into worlds she had never seen before. The temptation was stronger than Maggie's pride. "Agreed," she murmured, clasping her hands behind her back 3 paces. Her fingers were itching with desire. "Sensible child," said Eleanor so condescendingly that Maggie almost went back on her decision. But then they entered Eleanor's holy of holies.
"You've had the place renovated,"
Maggie heard Mo say. He added something else, but she wasn't listening anymore. She just stared at the books. The shelves on which they stood smelled of freshly sawn wood. They went all the way up to a sky blue ceiling with tiny lights in it, hanging there like stars. Narrow wooden stepladders on casters stood by the shelves, ready to help any reader up to the top shelves. There were reading desks with books lying open on them, held in place by brass chains that shone like gold. There were glass display cases containing books with pages stained by age but showing the most wonderful pictures. Maggie couldn't resist moving closer. One step forward, a quick glance at Eleanor, who luckily had her back turned, and she was right beside the display case. She bent lower and lower over the glass until her nose was touching it. Prickly leaves twined around pale brown letters. A tiny red dragon's head was spitting out flowers over the stained paper. Riders on white horses looked at Maggie as if scarcely a day had passed since someone painted them with tiny marten hair brushes. A man and a woman stood beside them, perhaps a bridal couple. The man with bright red hat was looking angrily at them. "You call that 3 paces?" Maggie spun around in alarm, but Eleanor didn't seem too angry. "Yes, the art of illumination," she said. Only rich people could read, so the pictures painted around the letters were to help the poor to understand the stories too. Of course, no one planned to give them pleasure. The poor were put into a world to work, not to have a nice time or to look at pretty pictures. That kind of thing was only for the rich. No, the idea was to instruct the poor. Usually the stories came from Bibles, and everyone knew them anyway. The books were put in churches, and a page was turned every day to show a new picture. "What about this book?" asked Maggie. "I shouldn't think this one was ever in a church," replied Eleanor. "More likely it was made for a very rich man to enjoy. It's almost 600 years old." There was no missing the pride in her voice. "People have committed murder for such a book. Luckily, I only had to buy it." As soon as she spoke these last words, she turned abruptly and looked at Dustfinger, who had followed them into the library, soundless like a prowling cat. For a moment, Maggie thought Eleanor would send him back into the corridor, but Dustfinger stood in front of the shelves, looking so impressed with his hands behind his back that he gave her no reason to turn him out. So she just cast him a final distrustful glance and turned back to Mo. He was standing at one of the reading desks with a book in his hand. Its spine hung only by a couple of threads. He held it very carefully, like a bird with a broken wing. "Well?" asked Eleanor anxiously. "Can you save it? I know it's in a terrible shape, and I'm afraid the others aren't in a much better way, but..."
"Oh, that can all be put right."
Mo put the book down and inspected another.
"But I think it will take me at least 2 weeks, if I don't have to get hold of more materials, which could mean I need more time. Will you put up with us that long?"
"Of course." Eleanor nodded, but Maggie noticed the glance she cast at Dustfinger. He was still standing beside the shelves near the door and seemed entirely absorbed in looking at the books.
but Maggie sensed that he had missed none of what was said behind his back. There were no books in Eleanor's kitchen, not one, but they ate an excellent supper there at a wooden table that came, so Eleanor assured them, from the scriptorium of an Italian monastery. Maggie doubted it. As far as she knew, the monks had worked at desks with sloping tops in the scriptoria of their monasteries, but she kept this information to herself. Instead, she took another slice of bread and was just wondering how nice the cheese standing on this supposed scriptorium table would be when she noticed Mo whispering something to Eleanor. Since Eleanor's eyes widened greedily, Maggie concluded that they could only be discussing a book, and she immediately thought of brown paper, a pale green linen binding, and the anger in Mo's voice. Beside her, Dustfinger surreptitiously slipped a slice of ham into his rucksack for Gwyn's supper. Maggie saw a round nose emerge from the rucksack, sniffling in the hope of more delicacies. Dustfinger smiled at Maggie when he noticed her looking at him, and gave Gwyn more ham. He didn't seem to find anything odd about Mo and Eleanor's whispering, but Maggie was sure the two of them were planning something secret. After a short time, Mo rose from the table and went out. Maggie asked Eleanor where the bathroom was and followed him. It was a strange feeling to be spying on Mo. She couldn't remember ever doing it before, except last night, when Dustfinger had arrived, and the time when she had tried to find out whether Mo was Father Christmas. She was ashamed of stealing after him like this, but it was his own fault. Why was he hiding the book from her? And now he might be going to give it to this Eleanor, a book Maggie wasn't allowed to see. Ever since Mo hurriedly hidden it behind his back, Maggie hadn't been able to get it out of her head. She had even looked for it in Mo's bag before he loaded his things into the van, but she could not find it. She just had to see it before it disappeared, maybe into one of Eleanor's display cases. She had to know why it meant so much to Mo that, for its sake, he would drag her all the way here. He looked around once more in the entrance hall before leaving the house, but Maggie ducked down behind a chest just in time. The chest smelled of mothballs and lavender. She decided to stay in hiding there until Mo came back. He'd be sure to see her if she went out of doors. Time passed painfully slow, as it always does when you're waiting for something with your heart thumping hard. The books in the white bookcases seemed to be watching Maggie, but they said nothing to her, as if they sensed that there was only one book Maggie could think about right now. Finally, Mo came back, carrying a package wrapped in brown paper. Perhaps he was going to hide it here, thought Maggie. Where could you hide a book better than among 10,000 others? Yes, Mo was going to leave it here, and then they'll drive home again. But I would like to see it, thought Maggie, just once, before it's put on one of those shelves I'm supposed to stay 3 paces away from. Mo passed her so close that she could have touched him, but he didn't notice her. Maggie, don't look at me like that, he sometimes told her. You're reading my thoughts again.
Now he looked anxious, as if he wasn't quite sure he was doing the right thing. Maggie counted slowly to 3 before following her father, but a couple of times Mo stopped so suddenly that Maggie almost ran into him. He didn't return to the kitchen, but went straight to the library. Without looking back once, he opened the door with the Venetian printer's mark on it and closed it quietly behind him. So there stood Maggie among all the silent books, wondering whether to follow him and ask him to show her the book. Would he be angry? She was just about to summon up all her courage and go after him when she heard footsteps. Rapid, firm footsteps, quick and impatient. That could only be Eleanor. Now what? Maggie opened the nearest door and slipped through it. A four-poster bed, a wardrobe, silver-framed photographs, a pile of books on the bedside table, a catalog lying open on the rug, its pages full of pictures of old books. She was in Eleanor's bedroom. Heart thudding. She listened for noises outside. She could hear Eleanor's energetic footsteps and then the sound of the library door closing for the second time. Cautiously, she slipped out into the corridors again. She was still standing outside the library undecided when she felt another hand laid on her shoulder from behind. Another hand stifled her cry of alarm. "It's only me," breathed Dustfinger into her ear. "Keep quiet or we're both in trouble, understand?" Maggie nodded, and Dustfinger slowly took his hand away from her mouth. "Your father's going to give the old witch that book, right?" he whispered. "Has he taken it out of the van? Tell me. He did have it with him, didn't he?" Maggie pushed him away. "I don't know," she snapped. "Anyway, what business is it of yours?" "What business is it of mine?" Dustfinger laughed quietly. "Well, perhaps I'll tell you sometime. But just now, all I want to know is whether you've seen it." Maggie shook her head. She didn't know herself why she was lying to Dustfinger. Perhaps because he had pressed his hand over her mouth a little too hard. "Maggie, listen to me." Dustfinger looked at her intently. His scars were like pale lines that someone had drawn on his cheeks. Two slightly curved marks on the left cheek, a third, a longer line on the right cheek, running from ear to nostril. "Capricorn will kill your father if he doesn't get that book," hissed Dustfinger. "Kill him, do you understand? Didn't I tell you what he was like? He wants the book. He always gets what he wants. It's ridiculous to believe it would be safe from him here." "Mo doesn't think so." Dustfinger straightened up and stared at the library door. "Yes, I know," he murmured. "That's the trouble. And so," he said, putting both hands on Maggie's shoulder and propelling her towards the door. "So now you're going to go in there, the picture of innocence, and find out what the pair of them are planning to do with that book, okay?" Maggie was about to protest, but before she knew it, Dustfinger had opened the door and pushed her into the library. So that's it for chapter 4. It's a pretty long one, but I think I'm getting the hang of reading longer chapters. Yeah, hopefully, let me know what you think. So it's my voice acting skills not so great because I don't have a very great voice acting range. Hopefully that is still acceptable. I cannot do male voices just like how Keelan Powell. He cannot do little boy voices or female voices. Yeah, it's hard for me, okay? But this is, he said, read with your real voice but with confidence. So that's what I tried to do. But then when I had the rhododendron something bushes, I was like, what the hell is this? I don't even know if it's a real plant. Yeah, so, it's kind of funny, huh? Right, that's all for today. So hopefully you guys enjoy this really weird reading stream. Yeah, my tongue is tangled now. I should probably get like lights next time when I do this reading thing, because it's kind of like the outside window, the sun is not consistent. It's like cloudy one moment and raining one moment, and raining and sunny at the same time, and then sunny all over. Yeah, so I'm gonna get back to cleaning my house, and I'll get lunch, and then I'll do some writing, because I think Marine Princess might actually hit 500 this week. Oh god. Yeah, I don't even want to think about it, because I scheduled it all the way until the end of Friday, but then I think if it actually, you know, hits 500 before Friday, there's gonna need weekend chapters, and my schedule is kind of fucked up, but yeah, thank you for joining. I'll see you guys again next time when this happens. Probably next month, alright? It's slow, but I will get there eventually. Bye-bye!